do your due diligence, look at some reviews, but you really want to talk with somebody who's not done just a few loans this year for VA. You want to look for someone that really does a lot of them. They know the ins and outs of the guidelines, get some referrals. You really want to do your background check on your loan officer. Lenders out there, they've got the name that they specialize in VA home loans, but that's good. But the loan officers that work for these lenders, you still want to interview them because that's not the only loans that they're doing there. They're doing conventional, they're doing FHA, they're also doing VA. So interview your loan officer and feel comfortable with that loan officer and work with that person. Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Helping Heroes Become Homeowners. I'm your podcast host, Richard Sari with Alliance Mortgage. And if this is your first time listening to our podcast, we welcome you. We'd love to talk about the VA home loan. Today, we're going to discuss some questions that I've accumulated over the last few weeks from customers, from realtors, and I want to kind of get these points out there. So we're going to do a quick question and answer episode here and go through those in a little bit more detail for everybody. So our question number one, what is the maximum VA loan amount that I can qualify for? So with VA, if you've got full entitlement, you can qualify for whatever loan amount the lender's willing to give you. What I mean by that is the lender does have loan amount limits from lender to lender, but if you qualify for $1 million loan or a $2 million loan, VA will allow you to finance up to that dollar amount. Now, if you have not full entitlement, you have some entitlement, not full entitlement, you will be held to the county loan limit. And right now that county loan limit is 726.2. So there is a possibility that you'll be limited to what you can finance in that area that you want to purchase in. Now, do I need to make a down payment when using the VA home loan? That's a yes and no answer. So if you've got full entitlement, there's no money down. But if you've got a little bit of entitlement on there because you haven't restored the previous loan that you did, you may have to put some money down. That's going to be a calculation for the loan officer based on the remaining entitlement that you have on your certificate of eligibility once that is pulled. Can I use a VA home loan to purchase a second home or an investment property? VA states that when you purchase the home, it has to be your primary residence and you have to live in that home. However, there's a way you can build wealth still with the VA home loan. If you have your primary residence and you've kept it for 12 months and you decide to move or you get relocated, you can keep that home and purchase another home, depending on how much entitlement you have left, where you may not have to put anything down or very little down on your next purchase. So that home you're vacating can become an investment property. It can become a second home, but from a VA perspective on that initial purchase, it has to be claimed as your primary residence. What are the VA funding fees and are there ways to avoid them? So if you have any kind of disability rating as a veteran, you're exempt from the funding fee. Your funding fee is going to range, if you don't have the disability rating, your funding fee is going to range from 2.1% down to 1.25 based on what you're putting down on your first use of your benefit. Now, if you've used it before, you're going to be at 3.3% funding fee all the way down to 1.25% based on what you're putting down. So the funding fee will just be financed into the base loan amount, and then your payment, principal and interest is based off of that. Now, to avoid that, you could always have the seller contribute towards closing cost, or concession rather, and that dollar amount can be used to pay the funding fee in full. So you have nothing financed. That will lower your principal and interest payment down a tad. How does the VA appraisal process work, and what are the minimum property requirements? So the appraisal process is very simple. When we order that with the VA, we're going to go through their portal. We're going to fill out the information they require to get that appraisal accepted by an appraiser in the area. That cannot happen until we have that certificate of eligibility pulled. That is a requirement that VA says we have to have before we can place that order. So once we do that, we're going to get a case number assigned. Your VA case number is going to be assigned to the appraisal. The appraiser will accept. They'll set up the appraisal inspection with the listing agent. Now, the minimum property requirements, we got to make sure it's safe, it's sound, it's secure. So the requirements on that, you're typically going to find that out when you do the home inspection. The home inspection is going to kind of be the ins and outs of the property, things that the inspector thinks may or may not need to be addressed with the seller. So once we have that report, we can get a better idea what those minimum property requirements may show up on the appraisal, or it may not show up. It all depends on how that inspection turns out. But there is a difference. Your appraisal and your home inspection are two separate things. They're not one and the same. Can I use a VA home loan to refinance an existing mortgage, and what are my options? So one of the benefits with VA is what's called the VA EARL, or a VA streamline. Terminology is the same. So you can refinance an existing VA loan into better terms, better rate. If you want to refinance your VA home loan and pull cash out, there's two different types. There's a type 1 and a type 2. So there are some opportunities there to pull cash out. Now in Texas, unfortunately, with our equity laws here, we cannot do those types of loans. But if you're in another state outside of Texas that does allow that, you could do a type 1 or type 2 cash out. Are there credit score requirements for VA home loans, and can I qualify with less than perfect credit? So VA's guidelines really doesn't have a minimum credit score. However, lenders do have minimum credit score overlays or credit score requirements in order to fund those loans. So traditionally, you have lenders out there that can go down to 550, 560 if you have an approved eligible, or if you qualify for a manual underwrite. So there's a lot of case by case scenarios there that we as a loan officer will put together for the veteran and see if we can get you qualified. Obviously, the better the credit score, the easier it is to get qualified for a VA home loan. But at the end of the day, every veteran that comes across our desk is an opportunity to get them qualified to be a purchase. So we do our best to get that done. What is the loan, or what is the VA loan certificate of eligibility, and how do I obtain one? So your certificate of eligibility is what I call the golden ticket. Without that, you wouldn't qualify for a VA home loan. You have to have that in place. You have to have a certain amount of entitlement to do 100% financing. If you don't have that full entitlement, then there might be a little bit of money that you have to put down. But the certificate of eligibility is the golden ticket to get that loan approved. The way you obtain it is we as a lender can obtain that for you electronically. We just need some information from you that we can get off the application. We input that on the portal and that comes to us immediately. If it does not, and the VA states it needs some more information to research, we'll let the veteran know what that information is, or we'll submit an electronic application and get that in a handful of days. Now, if you do not want to wait for the lender to do that, you can always obtain that on your own. Just contact your local VA regional office, and they should be able to obtain that and help you obtain that immediately. Can I use a VA home loan for new construction or to renovate an existing property? Absolutely. So on your loan construction loan, they're called a one-time construction. So we can come in and prepare the loan for that purpose. And as you're building and constructing the home, you're going to get separate draws on that one-time construction loan that we can do through VA. So that is an opportunity for you. Now, the renovation would be, hey, you got an existing home that you want to purchase. It doesn't necessarily meet the minimum property requirements. However, you can get a loan to accomplish that, and that's going to be financed into the purchase. So the renovation loan is an opportunity for you as well to find a house, a fixer-upper, and still meet those requirements during the process. How long does the VA loan approval process typically take? Really depends on who you're working with. It depends on how quickly you want to get your approval. Do you have your documents in order? Have you gotten the right lender to work with who's going to put that together as quickly as they can? Usually, if we have all that information from the consumer, the client, we can get it done within 24 to 48 hours. If we need to move that to a manual underwrite, that might take a few more days because they're physically going to underwrite the file without a property and give us a decision based on documentation that we have provided the underwriter. So it can vary 24 to 48 or maybe 5 days. Are there specific lenders that specialize in VA home loans, and how do I choose the right one? This is a very common question that I get. How do I know you're the guy? How do I know that you're going to get me to the finish line? And that really depends on the experience of the loan officer that you're going to do the loan with. So I always recommend to, do your due diligence, look at some reviews, but you really want to talk with somebody who's not done just a few loans this year for VA. You want to look for someone that really does a lot of them. They know the ins and outs of the guidelines, get some referrals. You really want to do your background check on your loan officer. Lenders out there, they've got the name that they specialize in VA home loans, but that's good. But the loan officers that work for these lenders, you still want to interview them because that's not the only loans that they're doing there. They're doing conventional, they're doing FHA, they're also doing VA. So interview your loan officer and feel comfortable with that loan officer and work with that person. 100% disability. This is a very common question. The disability rating in Texas to be fully exempt from property taxes is 100%. So on your disability letter, it should have on there the disability rating, and on your certificate of eligibility, it may have that as well. But your disability letter is what you want to provide the county when you purchase the home after you file your exemptions to show that you're 100% exempt. You're going to be exempt from property taxes. Property taxes would be zero. So that's going to help you with more affordability on the house. Obviously, that was the intention, but it's going to allow you more purchasing power when you're getting your pre-approval done. So if you have any kind of disability rating, please let your loan officer know. They should be asking you that question. Sometimes that does get overlooked, but if you do have 100%, please let your loan officer know. Also, if you have, if you're under 100 between a certain percentage, you're still going to get a little bit of a discount on your property taxes when you file the exemption. Each county is going to be different on how much they're going to save you if you're less than 100%. So hopefully some of this information was useful. I know it's a kind of a Q&A, not really an interactive Q&A, but it does have some key questions that we've gotten over the last few weeks. Hopefully this was information was useful. If you have any additional questions, please reply on our podcast on the comments below. We'd love to hear from you, and we'll get those answers to you right away. Thanks for joining us. We'll talk to you soon. You guys have a great day. If this episode has been beneficial, we'd love to hear from you. Please leave us a review on your favorite podcast platform. Also, for regular updates and tips, make sure to follow our social media channels, which you can find in the show notes. Until our next episode, keep making homeownership dreams come true.